what kind of damage could you do in acquisitions within this space from all that you've learned over the next 5 years? The funders out there, they're still hungry to do deals, but the bigger the better. That's their attitude. So 10 million, hey, that's great. But they get more excited about 306 million. If you're going to be thinking, you might as well think big. Why you? Why this? And why now?
Attention marketers and entrepreneurs, this is Valuetising, the place where we talk about scaling brands worth promoting. If you're a mission-driven entrepreneur obsessed with creating, scaling, and exiting multi-million-dollar brands, this is for you. My name is Santiago Phoenix and I am a business growth consultant, online marketer, and investor. I have helped more than 107 and 8-figure founders increase profits, claim their time back, and transform the world. Now it's your turn. Welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to Valuetising. My guest today is David Davis, a business broker, funding specialist, and a startup investor. David enables startup founders worldwide to realize their dreams by facilitating funding from hundreds of investors. David, welcome to the show.
Santiago, thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you here. I know you have such an interesting background. You were a teacher, and there are so many things that I want to ask you about. But first of all, what do you do today, mainly?
What I do is I facilitate funding for entrepreneurs that want to acquire, yes, real estate, but most of the time it is in the M&A space, in the mergers and acquisitions space. Entrepreneurs that say have experience in a construction niche, let's say. In fact, I give you many examples of clients I'm helping right now to nail down funding for what they want to do, and I'll explain that and give some examples of that. But that's what I'm doing currently.
So these are experienced entrepreneurs who want to expand their companies, or is it more the startup person? What type of entrepreneurs are they?
Occasionally, will be presented by a client with an opportunity to fund a startup, but most of the time, it's acquisitions of existing operating businesses. And like the example of the construction niche, I'm not going to mention which type of what particular product within construction it is, but this is the first gentleman on this team I met through Epic. I knew eventually Roland Frazier.
Yeah.
Has a program called EPIC, EPIC, Ethical Profits in Crisis.
Yeah, which is amazing for anybody listening.
It is. It's tremendous. And it's a fraternity, including some very savvy, extremely intelligent women too. I say fraternity, sure, a lot of it's guys. And right now, all my clients are guys. But I look forward to having a female, a woman client. That would be great. But when I meet other Epic alums, it's a very quick connection.
Yeah.
Because but even without Epic, they're thinking like entrepreneurs. They're thinking in a way that they want to expand, or they're thinking big, and we'll talk about thinking big later too. So they come to me, they find me, whether it's on Facebook or I have a business broker that sends me deals, which is, I didn't think that would ever happen, but actually I've got several, come to think of it, business brokers, but they send me people looking to either acquire existing businesses, or they already have one that they've acquired and they want to acquire more over the next 5 years, do a roll up and exit. that's a strategy that I specialize in.
Yes. And what are like the main funding options that exist for, yeah, because I'm new to this topic. So yeah, what type of, I've heard of crowdfunding, I guess banks, but like what's like the high level overview of the funding options that there are?
The high level view of funding is that typically clients are coming to me. I should say us because I work together with a broker, and we co-broker many of these deals. But clients will come to me and they want to acquire. Well, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
There's this young man. Uh, he's really sharp. I'm not going to say even what his current job is. And by the way, that's something I recommend. There's quite a few entrepreneurs out there. They quit their 9 to 5 job
Mhm.
because they think I'm going to go do this. I actually don't recommend that. You need to stay busy. Like my client, I would point to him. I'm going to call him Joe. I'm going to point to Joe as a very smart. You can't tell him what to do. It's helpful when he's already doing what he's supposed to be doing. So he has a sales job and he's very good at it. Really sharp kid. I could call him a kid because I think he's in his 20s, and I could be his grandpa practically. So, um, but he came to me and he said, "Listen, I want to acquire this niche manufacturing business." He's in Florida. I want to acquire this niche manufacturing business in North Carolina. And he understands and he knows and he's passionate about that particular space, you know, and manufacturing. And so after he came on and signed on with me as a client, I said, "Joe, what would it take to acquire that single business?" And he said $10 million altogether. And I said, "Great." I said, "That's a good start." And he kind of, huh? His eyes, I could see in his eyes, what did you say? No, that's a good start. That's great. So we got him onboarded, and then we met on a call just like this. And I said, "Listen, let me share a secret with you. Promise you won't tell anybody this. Don't give this out, because I came by this through much experience and through much trial and error over the years. But go to your seller,
Mhm.
go to your seller and get two things. Get this and get this." And he says, "Okay." And he had it in a day. It's a brokered deal. It's not an off-market deal, but he has a good relationship directly with the seller, which doesn't always happen. Whether it's a brokered deal or whether it's an off-market deal of this business acquisition, either way, you want to have a good relationship with the seller. So he goes to the seller and boom, very next day, he has these two pieces of information. I'm not going to say what they are, but
Yeah.
my clients find out. I said, and then we took the information and we got on a Zoom call. And he shared a screen and we looked at it. And I said, "Listen, what do you see in here?" And he told me, I see that the opportunity is not just to acquire competitors of this niche manufacturer. No, in other words, just manufacturers like him. No, there's an opportunity to do much more. And I said, "No, go out on with armed with your knowledge that you have.
Mhm.
What you just told me, you're right. You're absolutely right." In fact, now listen, Santiago, the exciting thing is he's very knowledgeable of this manufacturing space. Joe is.
That's important, you think?
Yeah,
That's great.
but still he did not see the opportunity. When he brought those two pieces, those two documents from the seller, it opened his eyes to what was possible. So don't to those you to those of you listening out there, don't think, "Oh, I know this ecom business really well. So, oh, whatever you got from the seller, whatever those two documents were, I know it." Don't assume that. I would not assume that, because if Joe doesn't know all this, then I don't think really very many people would be aware of this. But armed with this knowledge, I said, listen, go out on biz buy sell. I'm not suggesting you get all your deals from biz buy sell. I'm not suggesting all your deals be broker deals. Find off market deals whenever possible. But go out there and see what's possible to acquire. And he went from $10 million. And I also said to him, I said, Joe, listen, you're not just acquiring one business. This is just the start. This is your flat. I like to call it, I suppose maybe I termed this phrase, this $10 million acquisition. This is your flagship. Or one of my clients said, what about anchor? I like that too. Flagship or anchor acquisition
Yeah.
to get you started in
Base
that
of
cool
operation.
language. I love it. There's a lot of military guys in what we do, and men and women, is they're very disciplined and so knowledgeable, and they take action, right? So we can learn from our brothers and sisters, in the military, from the military. They're wonderful people, right? So, but I said, so over the next 5 years, we're looking at a line of credit for you to do acquisitions within the next 5 years within this space. So he went from 10 million. I said, no, take that knowledge. And he's thinking, I'm on this call with him, and the wheels are turning. He's a sales engineer, and he's getting really excited. I said, so Joe, let's meet in a couple of days, but you create a spreadsheet, start with 10 million. What kind of damage could you do in acquisitions within this space from all that you've learned over the next 5 years? He came back with 288,600,000.
Wow.
Yes. And
That's
it was his. See, and so, yeah, I'm in sales, sure. I promote a process. I promote that, hey, do it with me, you know. So in sales, this is always true, I've learned, right? If it comes out of my mouth, it's not necessarily true. But if it comes from the client, that's the truth. This was coming from him. It was coming out of his mouth, out of his eyes, out of his heart, out of his. I mean, he was just so enthused and full of this.
Mhm.
So 288,600,000. You know what I said again? I go, that's a good start. And he's like,
Oh my
what? And I said, and I gave him a few more thoughts. Then we met the next day, because he's like, well, we gotta meet tomorrow. He's so excited. So we met the next day, and he had implemented a few things I suggested. It currently sits at $305,950,000. And what we're doing is we have groups of hundreds. It's toward 1,000. Actually, with all the resources we have, several thousand plus funders, potential funders, to fund what amounts to a line of credit over 5 years. And so he went from 10 million to 305,950,000. Right? You can't make up that amount, right? That's you know. And the great thing was, he was it was totally his idea. It wasn't anything I put upon him. And he ended up sharing with me how over the past few years he had been honing and focusing his mind, his attention, and his heart on this process. And he ended up telling me one of the most meaningful things I've ever heard, either as a educator or in this finance space, this acquisition finance space. He said, David, I was born to do this. This is what I am supposed to do. And you can see I love to talk, right? I make fun of myself. I love to talk. I was speechless. I tell my friends, if I'm speechless, if I'm not saying anything, I'm either very sick or dead, But we both sat there, and after he said that, he was speechless, and I was just blown away. It was one of the most meaningful, because I love to help people, so it was very meaningful to hear that from his lips. And so, anyways, very very exciting, extremely meaningful. Yeah, so that's the 10 million to $306 million story, and there's others too. That's not the only one. And that's my specialty. It's the specialty of, so yes, we can help entrepreneurs. We can help your friends, Santiago, your friends out there. We can help them acquire um, their initial, one acquisition, including real estate. We can help them with one, but it's much better to I feel, think of a 5-year roll up. And besides, even with the capital markets that have shifted, right?
Mhm.
And there's some additional demands with the market shift of late, recently, the market shift. Still, the demand for this type of financing, and the funders out there, they're still hungry to do deals, but the bigger the better. That's their attitude. So 10 million, hey, that's great. But they could get more excited about 306 million or 400 million. And
That's counterintuitive. Like the bigger the money, the easier it is to raise it.
right. A lot of guys come to me, hey, I need 700,000. Well, what do you need it for and how soon do you need it? What's it for and how soon do you need it? And those are important transactions, but I I try and get them to I work on getting them to think bigger. And so funding a $700,000, usually they need $700,000 to bring a deal together. And then there may be some seller financing involved, which is great. Get seller financing whenever you can. And but those smaller deals are tough to get funded. Typically, 700,000, you're either going to either that's a loan. You need to either personally qualify for a loan or
Mhm.
find some mezzanine lending to take something like that down. But when you're talking about tens and hundreds of millions, you're talking about doing a capital raise, and that's where institutional investors get involved. And sometime on this podcast, I'll tell you about. I've been on calls with some of the biggest investment banks in the world, and I'll actually give you some insight
Yeah.
as to what happens during conversations on
Yeah.
like that.
What do they think? What are they looking for?
This is exciting. You would think they're so sophisticated. I mean, we're talking in particular. I'm talking, yeah. One, I shouldn't say what how they rank. That's getting too specific, but yeah, one of the largest investment banks in the world happens to be based in the United States. I've been on calls with them, multiple calls with them, and it's myself, the director and president of the investment bank,
Mhm.
and my client, and a few others. And here's what it comes down to. And by the way, a little bit of background. Whenever you're on a call, you want to be prepped for a call because otherwise you might be scared to death. You might be really nervous, and you don't want to be nervous. You want to be confident. So I tell my clients, listen, our call is tomorrow morning with this investment bank. I said, don't be nervous. I wouldn't schedule this call for you unless I knew that one, you were passionate,
Mhm.
two, you had knowledge and experience. You can show that you've got some success behind you, and you have a team to fill in for the areas that you can't or don't want to do. Okay, those three: passion, a past success,
Mhm.
and at least a little, and a team that fills in because no one can do everything and know everything. So I tell my clients, I say, listen, when they have that, only when they have that, I take I'll take them to a call if it's appropriate and if it fits into what they want to do.
Yeah.
I'll get them a call with a huge investment bank. So, but I tell my clients, don't be intimidated because now here's what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do. You're not
Uh-huh.
going to hear this. You have to know you have to be friends with the investment bank leaders and be on calls with them and you learn. So I say to my clients, listen, they've already read your pitch deck, your spreadsheet, financial spreadsheet, and your executive summary. They've read it. Okay. And they read hundreds of them a week, right? So, but they've read yours. But when you get on the call, they're going to act like they have not read it at all. They're going to act like they know nothing because they want to hear it from you. So relax and just be yourself. And when they see the passion in your eyes, no one can fake that. And when they see out of your mouth just a calmness and but with enthusiasm, it's what a crazy combination, calm but enthusiastic. How does that work? It just comes out of you that you know your space, you know why you're doing it. Because here's what it comes down to. So one of the largest investment banks in the world, so complicated? No, it's really easy. They say, hey, what our institutional investors, what our funders are looking for is the answer to three questions. Why you? Why this? And why now? That's it. And
Simple,
when my clients speak up on the Zoom call,
yeah.
and they begin to talk about what they're doing, what they want to do, and their vision over the next 5 years for a roll up and exit, the passion and the vision and the enthusiasm that comes out of them, they begin to inform our investment bank friends that it's me, I'm the man to do this. And then why why this construction niche? Why? And then because my clients have already explained it to me, they're just going to explain it to them very succinctly. They're going to sound like they know what they're doing, and they always do. And then why now? Why not later? Why didn't you do it before? So why not? So why you? Why this? And why now? Not complicated. And so I always set my clients up for success that after they come off a call, and the last call we had last week, I called my client. I says, how do you feel about that? He says, that was great. That went really well. And it did. It went really well. So no need to be nervous. But so if those of you out there that want to do acquisitions, if you never get in front of an investment bank, which you might, but if you never do, but you are funded by a capital group or private investors, still you want to answer that question. Why me? Why am I the man to do this? And why this? And why now? That needs to be part of your story that you know backwards and forwards. And it doesn't hurt when the investment bank president or director says, so tell me about your EBITDA past few years. It's been a healthy percentage of revenue. Tell me how that works. But my clients, they don't stammer, they don't stumble, they know just what to say and how to say it. Because they know their business. It's even though they haven't started acquiring yet, it's their business in their mind, and in their heart, it's their business.
All right. So even if they are working at a job right now, like the salesperson that you told me about.
Right. Right. Yeah. So pretty much all of these entrepreneurs, they want to eventually be able to walk away from their job. They want to be a CEO. They want to be a CEO. So still they're very good at their jobs, but and occasionally I remind them of that. I say, listen, so how's things at work? How's things at your sales job? Oh, really good. I hit some new goals. I said, that's great. Keep doing that. Keep doing that. Because not all a lot of deals don't close. Now, when you have a 5-year plan with a line of credit, so to speak, a 5-year line of credit to acquire, these acquisitions that fit your profile,
Yeah.
You're much more likely to close on deals because sellers are looking for buyers that can not only write an LOI, but also begin to show that they have proof of funds, or that they're in the process of
That they can actually
raising. doing a large raise. And there's no upside. I get asked a lot, Santiago. I get asked a lot. Um, what's the upside? What's the most you could raise? There is no most. I mean, there's the potential. The potential is, hundreds of millions, even billions.
That's crazy. It's like the limit is just your imagination, your vision,
Right. Absolutely.
and how much you trust yourself, your confidence in yourself to.
That's right. Yeah, that has absolutely, Santiago. That has a lot to do with it. Um, I might as well mention here, I did mention in the notes we shared that, everyone's opportunity to think big. It's been said by very wise people. If you're going to be thinking, you might as well think big. Can everyone do that? No, but that's okay. Not everyone can climb up the side of a vertical rock wall on their way to scaling some huge mountain. Can everyone do that? No, but that's okay. That's so can everyone think that they could acquire businesses within their expertise, within their passion over the next 5 years and do $1 billion exit? You know,
Yeah.
um, not everyone can think that big, but I'm putting people in a position where they can think that big.
Are you looking for ways to grow your business faster? I have created a free masterclass that explains the 5 levels of exit every entrepreneur must go through. And by the way, selling your company is only one of them. The 8 biggest reasons why businesses get stuck and fail and how to avoid them. And a proven framework to turn your business into an asset so you can achieve faster profits and limitless impact with less stress and overwhelm in the process. If you would like to turn your small or medium-sized business into a valuable, sellable enterprise, this class is definitely for you. Just go to myplantoscale.com to get access now. Now, back to the show. Tell me more about that, because you used to be a teacher, and not only any type of teacher. Can you just tell us a little about your story when you were working with gang kids, and how you saw this specific thing, which is the ability of some people to think big and why others can't.
Great question. You can tell I'm a storyteller. Yes, I was an educator, but even as a kid, I was an entrepreneur. I was looking for creative ways to make money. So as a kid, the paper route, right, and some different ideas to make money. But I became a teacher after doing. So I graduated from college, and along with a job, I was doing youth ministry for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I kind of sensed that the youth ministry, which went for nearly 3.5 years, very fulfilling time, made some incredible relationships that I even have today. It occurred to me that maybe my calling, not a job, but a calling, was to be a teacher, an educator. And I thought, well, if I'm going to teach anything, it would be math. And I tend to really gravitate toward the age, the high school age.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to my ministry boss, I said, I think I'm supposed to be a high school math teacher. And he said, I think you're absolutely right. He kind of scared me because I didn't know him that well. And but he said, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're going to be fabulous. So I was a high school math teacher. And as a young high school math teacher, I experienced some failures. I mean, as a younger person, 20 something years old, I guess I did not understand yet how to relate to kids especially from, like, say, inner city situations. But eventually I became so good at connecting with students that I actually volunteered to go to our school districts, um, regional safe school. Now, regional safe school, that's kind of, school administrator speak for kids that should probably, well, they've, okay, you have to be careful because okay, what so many school districts are kicking so many kids out, they're expelling so many kids that the state is saying, listen, don't expel so many kids. Stop this. You need to find a solution for this.
Uh-huh.
So they came up with the regional safe school concept. So I taught in an old reopened high school in Peoria, Illinois, where the second floor was alternative kids. They didn't have enough safe school kids to fill the whole school. So they thought, well, the alternative kids that are failing, we'll put them on the second floor, all ages. I taught high school. On the third floor, segregated from the rest of the school. Very interesting. They were the regional safe school kids. They all had parole officers. They weren't all in gangs. One of my favorite students, Jamion, he was not in a gang because he didn't need to be. He didn't want to be. He was his own person. And in fact, the gang kids were scared of him or well respected him. But Jamion is just a wonderful, and he actually graduated. So there's a success story. But yeah, some of those third floor kids, they took a gun to school. They lit a bathroom on fire. Yeah, they threatened the life of a teacher. And I kid you
And you
not.
were the teacher.
And my first year there, I taught there 3 years. My first year there, it really bothered me that the school district would never disclose to us how they got there. Because until I got comfortable with those kids and I knew how to act around them, how to handle myself around them, it really bothered me. Like, what if they knifed a teacher or tried to knife a teacher? Well, if they actually knifed a teacher, they wouldn't be there. But if they tried to, and they took him, like, he's going to really do it, we need to stop him, take him out of school, and they'd send him to us. And there was one student my second year that attacked me. He tried to get me to swing at him, and I didn't. But um,
And
but
you were there voluntarily.
well, I was a paid teacher, but I chose to go there because the classroom sizes were small. Instead of teaching 30-35 students, you'd have 5. And so my best approach is to tutor kids, and I would sit in a desk next to them, shoulder to shoulder, and show them how to do their algebra or their trig or their algebra 2 or their pre-algebra, right? And so, but I just made up my mind every day, Santiago, that when I went there, it was extremely exhausting work, but ended up being very rewarding. Extremely exhausting. At the end of each day, you're just spent. You're so exhausted, especially emotionally. But I made up my mind, starting with the second year there, that God helping me, I'm going to connect with these kids. And it starts with getting their name right. I fuss over getting people's names right, spelling it, pronouncing it just so. So I would meet their moms and grandmas. There weren't very few dads at home for any of those kids. I mean, I think I met 2 dads that weren't stepdads out of hundreds of kids. Most kids are being raised by their mom and grandma, and which is fine. But the lack of a father figure that has an effect.
Really?
But I would say to the grandpa and grandmother and mother, how do you pronounce their names? Tell me a little bit about them. And so, but it worked. The last couple of years I was there, Santiago, and this isn't wisdom that someone told me, but I believe it came from God. I mean, I believe God put into my mind this, because here's what I did. I hadn't heard about this. It was downloaded to me to do this. And then we'll move on. I know I'm going a little bit long, but here's what happened. My second and third year there, very first day, like 3 or 5 or 7, small class size, they're walking into my classroom. They're meeting me for the first time. And I'm looking at them and I'm calling them by name. And I'm pronouncing their names like Letitia, Jamion, Steve, Sean, I can spell their names backwards and forwards. I'm pronouncing their names perfect. And I can see the look on their faces. These are jaded kids from rival gangs sitting in the same room together. Now, how there were not more fights, I don't know. I still marvel at that. But they're walking in. I'm like, hey, Sean. Hey, Michael. Forgetting some of my students' names. just now, but they would walk in. I'm looking at them. I said, "Everyone have a seat, and everyone look at me." And they're all looking at me. They're kind of like, "Whoa, this what's going on here?" And I said, "Listen, guys, you've heard about me. I've taught some of your steps brothers and sisters.
Mhm.
You've in the neighborhood, in your neighborhoods, you've heard about who Mr. Davis is, and you've probably heard I'm very friendly teacher, very friendly guy. Okay, but listen, you need to understand something. And what I'm about to say, it may sound kind of tough, but it's a good thing. Let me explain. I'm not your friend. I'm your teacher. Okay. Now, here's what this means. Okay. So, this is going to be great. I'm so glad you're here, but let me explain. I'm your teacher, not your friend, because you're going to be sitting next to a girl. And I'll admit I'm a guy. I, I'm sweet on girls. I like girls. They're like my daughters. Okay. So if a girl's sitting next to you and she's got to go to the bathroom, I let her go. But you're a guy, and if I feel you haven't been doing your work, I might not let you go. And you're going to get mad at me, or I mess up your daily grade, or I do something. If you get mad at me, I will give you this. If you want to stand up and give me the business, do it, but do it respectfully. And if you're mad at me, you can tell me it's okay. And I'm going to give you the floor, and I might even sit down in my chair and just listen to you, and take their venting seriously. And I says, but by the time you're done, you will sit down in your chair and you will go, wait a minute. Okay, I was mad for some reason. Now they can't even remember why they were mad. And I'm telling this before it happened. And then when it happened, I had such credibility. So I said, when you sit down, you're going to remember, hey, this is Mr. Davis who cares about his students. And I said, I didn't use the word love that day. I did later, but that day I says, you're going to find out what you heard from your friends, before you got here, that Mr. Davis really, really genuinely cares about his students. And I do. And so one day, this pretty girl, her nickname was Liberty. I forget her real name now because I always called her Liberty.
That's a cool
She got
name.
mad at me. She popped out of her chair and she's giving me the business. She's yelling at me for something that I did. I'm like, okay, I'm listening to her. And by the time she sat down, she had forgotten why she was mad. And all the students, even the most jaded ones, are going like, "Oh my goodness, what Mr. Davis said actually happened." And from a girl we're scared of because she was tough. No one would fight her because she would kick their butts. So, anyways, um, so it worked, and then I just followed it up with, "Listen, I wouldn't stand over them and force them to work. I would charm them, even to do just doing a little bit of work." And I really lowered the bar. So if they had a little bit of success, I'd get all excited. And they'd look at me, "Mr. Davis, you're crazy. You're nutty." I said, "Well, you're forgetting old, bald white guy. Just, say, if you want to make fun of me, that's fine. Just be civil to each other." That's something that I figured gave me credibility too. I didn't defend myself. I'm like, if you want to call me stupid, or because I clearly prove every day I'm not stupid. I'm teaching them trig. I'm teaching these kids who hate learning or have always failed at learning. I'm teaching them trig. And I felt that was an exciting accomplishment. So, but what I took from that, I just was confident. I was more than confident, Santiago, that I could connect with anybody. So, toward the end of my teaching career, I became a real estate investor and learned how to relate to, as a landlord, to tenants. And but then I had started two businesses. I'd started a tutoring business, a math tutoring business, and I'd started a real estate related land business. And I thought, how do I sensibly exit those? So I saw Roland Fraser's EPIC program
Mhm.
and I enrolled, and lots of good knowledge. Some guys go, all this knowledge, how do I assimilate all this? I go, yeah, there's a lot of knowledge. But I say, listen, the key is the relationships. So you just begin to tap into all of these great men and women across the world who have the heart of an entrepreneur, and they're either already not scared to think big, or they're learning to think bigger. And so those are the connections I'm riding on and enjoying right now.
Oh my God, so many golden nuggets there. So yeah, I heard many things there. First of all, the importance of connecting with people, creating relationships, of celebrating small wins, trusting the process, and thinking big. That's that's huge. And it's not something that's easily taught. Like, how do you teach that?
Right. No, thank you for noticing that. Yes, celebrating the little victories, because literally a student, one of my students would actually understand for the first time how to like combine like terms, polynomials. That's not, you know, and I was dyslexic as a boy. And so there were some learning challenges I had to overcome. So it was easy for me to look at algebra, for example, from their eyes, because some teachers will just throw an equation and one unknown up there and expect it to be easy. Oh my goodness. I mean, you've got to look at every detail and understand what, like a 2 and an x juxtapositioned, what does that mean? They don't know what that means. And some teachers like throw it out there and expect them, okay, this is easy. Well, okay. Yeah, it's easy, but once you give them some tools to understand, um, so it was helpful that I was able to understand from their point of view the challenges and needed to be, what they needed help with. And so there are similarities in this space in terms of helping entrepreneurs understand what they're capable of. And it is one of my biggest joys ever in my life to be a part of helping them step forward into what they want to do, what they know that they should be doing. And again, so when it's there, like with Joe, I knew I knew from being an educator, you can't put things on people. It's best. I mean, it'll work. I mean, you do this, you do it this way. All right, all right. But you're going to get so much more. It's best if it's like it becomes their project, their idea. And then that's the truth for them. Comes out of my mouth. Okay, it may or may not be true. But when it comes from them, like it did for Joe that day, like I was born to do this. I'm doing this. Come come heck or high water, I'm doing it. So anyways,
It's like
but
you showed him his potential.
yeah, isn't it something from 10 million to 306 million? And there's other examples like that too. I'm talking to let's see, that's 306 million. I'm talking to 400 million. Um, there's been some cases where but I wasn't a part of them. 1.2 billion. And actually what happened there, so um, one of the clients, not my client, but one of the clients had one of the excuse me, one of our associates. An associate is someone who brings me deals. So by the way, those of you out there, you can bring me your own deals or you can bring me others' deals. If you're an associate and you bring me deals, like the business broker, actually a business broker near me, could be a business broker anywhere. A business broker near me actually brought me Joe. And he's going to share. And I told him, listen, we're looking at this much of a commission for you. It's a 6-figure commission, nearly 7.
Wow.
And he's like, wow, a business broker is reacting this way. Wow. So, and what a great guy he is. And so there's an opportunity out there. You can bring your own deals or other people's deals, but there's a gentleman in Europe. He's an associate, not my associate, but I worked with him. He had a client who was really big into commercial real estate. And he's like, listen, I've got all this enormous project. I won't tell you in the world where it is. He's got this particular client has real estate projects all over the world. But he said, listen, of this huge project, I want you to refinance this little portion of 25 million right here, this little piece. We took it to that investment bank I'm referring to, where we had that conversation. Why you? Why this? Why now? Okay, that same investment bank, we took it to them. They looked at it and they go, okay, so we can appreciate why you want to refinance, so to speak, this 25 million. Now we want to do the whole thing. We want to do all of it, everything. We want to refinance, redo everything. And the client goes, okay, well, what would that be? And they got some great credibility. They go, well, that would be, we calculated as 1.2 billion. And the client goes, wow, you're right. That's exactly how much it would be. Because his people had looked over the figures so thoroughly, right? So, but
Yeah.
that gives you an idea. That gives you an idea of the appetite out there. So funders may put a few more requirements on you because of the shifted capital markets. But the appetite is still there. And the appetite and the demand appetite from entrepreneurs, it's there more than ever. It hasn't gone away.
So I'm sure a lot of people will have this question, and it's when you are taking $300 million in debt or 1.2 billion, how do you manage risk? Especially like how do you actually pay this and not prevent from getting bankrupt, basically?
Oh, so how do you handle the like the debt service
Yeah,
and
first of all, all right, so it's not a personal debt, right? It's who takes on the debt, and how do you manage that risk, basically?
the debt? So our funders never lend. Well, unless we do some gap funding, unless we've got a client that needs, like, say, $150,000, short term and quickly. We have methods for 150,000 up to $500,000. We can be very creative, but when we're talking the acquisition, the bigger amounts, let's say really like at least 10 million, maybe 5 million, 10 million. Here's how it works, Santiago. For the smaller amounts, like 10 million and lower, those are typically all debt, all loan. Okay. And yes, but it's going to be designed in such a way that the lender knows that they'll be able to service the debt. Okay.
It's not a personal debt. It's a
No, it's not personal. Never
business
is.
loan.
No. Maybe the small amounts, the small amounts, like if I have a client to say, listen, I need for expenses, I need this much and I need it quickly. I need it within a couple of weeks. So, a lot of times I'll say to them, well, if you need it that quickly and if your credit profile accommodates it, then let's do this. And it's based on personal credit profile. But these larger amounts, no, they're never personal. They're always funding a company, an LLC, usually positioned as an S corp, right? Um, so, so in that space, in terms of the larger acquisition amounts, 10 million and below is typically all debt, but 10 million and above is usually a hybrid. It's some of it's a loan, but then some of it's equity. Okay, where of course, the funder, I call them funder. I don't say lender. I say funder because it could include debt, equity, some very creative solutions. Nobody's more creative than we are. We can be very creative. In fact, the broker I work with, that's his
The name of it.
Creative Global Funding Services.
Yeah.
And it does the deals all over the world. And so, but usually the bigger amounts are a hybrid approach, debt and equity. Okay. And so, but they're designed. The nice thing about raising capital in this way is you're dealing with millionaires, really billionaires. And how have they made their money? Well, they've done their own exits. They've owned their own companies. They haven't, they haven't become millionaires, billionaires, just working as a teacher. They may have been a teacher like me, but they've got a whole lot, a lot more going on. And of course, and so they both understand corporate ownership and raising money, raising capital, and exits, roll ups and exits. They more than appreciate those. So they're going to design something that works. They're not going to design something that won't work. They're going to design something where your business, as it's chunking out profit, can take care of that debt and either pay it all off through an exit or refinance it along the way during the 5 years or 5 or so years of acquisitions. You refinance it or just let the exit pay off everybody and pay off the entrepreneur handsomely, most of all.
So it's more appealing to them if there's an exit plan from the beginning.
Yes, because they understand it, they've done it themselves, and so you don't have to. You don't have to. You can. Joe could have just done a $10 million acquisition, and then once that was completed, then figure out where to go from there. But nope, it's all involved. It's his first acquisition within a 5-year plan. Now, by the way, I would not be surprised if we put him together, say, with like one of the investment banks, and they suggest go high. They might say, why only 306 million? I've heard that on conversations. Why only 400 million? Why only 120 million? Why only 500 million? And they actually suggest bigger because they're not afraid of that, and they know that their funders have appetite. I guess it's COVID. COVID probably reminded us all that life can be very brief, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow's not promised to any of us, right? As the proverb says. Is that a proverb? Yeah, I think that's a proverb. But and so together with COVID and inflation and everything, it's just like, hey, more than ever, the bigger the better. Really, yeah. So it is Santiago. I like you said it's counterintuitive. Yes, it is counterintuitive. And so I've got some clients that it took them a little while to wrap their minds around that. But then when they got it, and you could. I don't even have to ask them when they got it because you could tell they're just talking different.
Yeah.
They're acting different,
and
they're like,
it raises the level of problems that you're thinking about. Like, for example, I'm not thinking about serving these few customers, but I'm thinking about solving big problems and big industries. Yeah, more contribution really, because I was listening to some podcasts about Elon Musk, and the way he picks his business problems are always like humanity problems, are huge things, and that leads to huge enterprises and I guess huge funding too.
We're thinking the same way. I literally, I kid you not, I was going to mention Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Because when you get thinking bigger, some people think, some friends of mine in this space, they have maybe kind of mean things to say about Elon sometimes. But I'm like, no, I don't understand why they say that sometimes. It's kind of small, maybe nitpicky things. But whenever or people that are getting the big picture, when they listen to Elon Musk, they really, really begin to understand some of the things he's saying because they're beginning to appreciate how he thinks. And he's not the only one, of course, but it is true. It is true. And Elon Musk would confirm that, say, listen, if you're going to be thinking, you might as well be, if you're going to be thinking anyways, you might as well think big.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And can you do this type of creative funding strategies if you are outside the United States? For example, I'm in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as the region is stable. And yes.
Or if it's or if it is an internet business.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We do a lot of e-com business. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that really does open up things across the world, doesn't it, Santiago? When it's just like, oh yeah, as long as it's a stable region. Oh, by the way, and then in terms of like if if anybody wants to bring me business, please do, or talk about a deal. Um, you want to keep in mind that if you are already in this space, or you're looking to acquire in a particular space that you're passionate and knowledgeable about, right? A good thing to look at is, and this is just a start, this isn't the end all, but here's a metric. What percentage is EBITDA of revenue? In fact, if you're looking at a business, how about average EBITDA over the last 3 years? What percentage is that average EBITDA over the last 3 years? What percentage is that of the revenue from the last 3 years? And if it's 20% or more, that's pretty good. If you get up toward the 30s, that's really, really great. That's good. Well, I shouldn't maybe say great. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
And if you look at enough deals, you'll occasionally see them up into the 40s. I see in all these years, I've seen a few 50%. But if it's below 20%, I'm keep in mind when you acquire a business, you want to introduce efficiencies and scale, right? So that you can improve upon the efficiency of a business. So that has to do with the current efficiency of a business. See a lot of deals, EBITDA, average EBITDAs, like higher 20%, maybe 30% or so of revenue. That's a good situation. That's not the only metric, but that's a good start. That lets you know that if you're looking at now, if it's low on that scale, what can you do to improve it? And if it's low on that scale, the seller's probably asking less because they know they won't bring it up. They're not gonna bring up their stubbed toe, right? They're not gonna bring up a negative, but they know in their heart, they know that there's things they could be doing better. So maybe they're gonna let the business go at less of a premium, and then so what can you do to improve it?
Okay. And any
So,
type of
but all over the world, Europe is fantastic. We've got some deals we're working on in Africa. A lot of opportunity in Africa, but yeah, all over the world. I mean, Singapore,
also all
all
type
over
of
the world.
industries.
What's that?
Also all type of industries.
Yeah, bring it. Everything's worthy of a discussion. You bet. Yeah, just you can run deals by me, and if there's not an appetite among funders for, say, cannabis related, you know, no, but there is though. There is funding appetite for, say, cannabis, for example. You know, yeah. So just you really anything's worthy of even a brief conversation, right?
Amazing. Thank you so much, David. I really enjoyed uh, that you are, of course, you have your whole math background and very process driven, but at the end of the day, you're speaking about something very human, which is how can we dream bigger? How can we solve bigger problems? And is there anything else that you would like to let the audience with?
Um, was there something? What was? No, I think I about said it all. um, and sorry, I probably talked too much,
It was great. It was great.
but no, thanks for letting me speak. And I think that that's the one thing I wanted to get across is the environment, the the capital markets are waiting for big thinkers, and just be able to answer why me, why this industry, this space, and why now. Just gets to the core of why am I even doing this? Why me and why this? Yeah. So even the most sophisticated out there, these huge investment banks, that's what they're asking because that's what their clients look for. That's what their funders look for. And so, but if anyone would want to reach me, if you'd want to make available like my email,
Yeah,
people
where can they find out? Where can they reach out to you?
yeah, at my email, David at nobleacquisitions.net. And I've never pointed that to a website, nobleacquisitions.net. I just my funding broker partner, and I've always just made use of his very expansive website, Creative Global Funding Services.com. You could put those out there, and so anyone that would want to reach me. And then Creative Global Funding Services, that's Gregory Stewart, but we work together on funding deals all over the world. And if you ever want to do it again, just let me know. But I enjoyed it very much, and I'm very much a storyteller. But appreciate you, Santiago, very much.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the show, hit the share button and send it over to one fellow marketer or entrepreneur. We work hard to make sure they'll thank you for it. Also, to get featured on the show, go to valuetising.com and apply to become our next guest. Until next time, keep valuetizing.